Hey, what's going on, Northpoint Online? My name is Jeremy. I'm the content director here at Northpoint, and I just want to say welcome. Maybe you're coming back in from out of town after Thanksgiving. Maybe it's your very first time with us. You're checking out Northpoint Online, or perhaps you are a regular watcher of Northpoint Online. We are just so glad that you are tuning in today. We are wrapping up a series today called More that we have been in the past couple of weeks. If you've missed the first three, be sure to go back and watch those or listen on our podcast when you get a chance. And we're jumping into a Christmas series next week. All things Christmas are beginning to happen here at Northpoint. We're so excited. But today, I'm just so pumped that you are tuning in. And as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We hope you enjoy the service.
Welcome to Northpoint. Thanks for joining us. We want to let you know right up front that our mission is to inspire people to follow Jesus. Our hope is that wherever you're at and wherever you're coming from, we can help you find growth, belonging, and purpose. The best place to start is our website. Simply go to npaustin.com to find out more about how we are for you. We want to be available for you to engage all week long, which is why we are always producing new content. The best way to make sure you never miss a podcast, blooper reel, or your favorite meetup is to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, as well as on YouTube. Just search Northpoint Austin. Whether it's your first Sunday, you've been here for years, or somewhere in between, you may be wondering what's next for you or your family. If that's the case, we want to help you discover what that is. Simply scan this QR code with your phone or go to our website at npaustin.com and click What's Next. Use the filters on this page to find the right step for you, specifically for you. Thanks again for joining us. From all of us at Northpoint, we hope you enjoy the service.
Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing today? How was Thanksgiving? You guys have a good time? And who's excited about going back to work or school tomorrow? One guy. I love it. It's great. Well, guys, if I haven't had the opportunity to meet you yet, my name is Shane, and I'm part of the connection team here at Northpoint. And before we do anything else, I want every single one of you to know, whether you're here with us in person or perhaps you're tuning in online, that we are thrilled that you chose to be with us today. Now, with Thanksgiving behind us, that means Christmas is just around the corner. Is anyone excited about Christmas? This side is. I don't think I heard a single person over here say anything. Are you guys awake? Okay, head nods will do. I appreciate it. And on Christmas Eve here at Northpoint, we've got some pretty neat things to celebrate with you guys, or in store for you guys. And to tell you a little bit about it, I would love for you to hear from three very, very special people. So take a look at this.
Hey, what's up, Northpoint? And What's up, Northpoint? Christmas is right around the corner, which means that Christmas Eve is also right around the corner, and that's a big deal to us here.
And we go big every single year here at Northpoint for Christmas Eve services because we want to create unforgettable moments and experiences for you and your entire family to experience together.
And we want to let you guys know what's happening this Christmas Eve.
Shane, what are you wearing, man?
Well, Jeremy, you told me that we were doing this Elf on a Shelf video, and since you guys were elves last year, I thought this was the right approach to this video.
Shane, I don't know if you can tell, but we've moved well past that. We're mature now.
I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. We're older now.
Then why did you buy me this costume, and why are we sitting on this ridiculous shelf?
Dude, we just thought it'd be fun to kind of hang out up here today.
It's me.
It's you.
But since you're feeling so festive, Shane, why don't you go tell the people what we're doing?
Well, we are gonna have 6 Christmas Eve services at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. But I know it's Sunday this year, but we will not be having any Christmas morning services.
And we want to let you guys know that Wamaland will be open for children pre-K and younger.
Yes, and we're going to be streaming every single service live. And if you want to invite a friend or you want to send a link to a family member to watch online or even to get information about coming in person, then you can just go to npaustin.com/Christmas.
And really great news, I hear there are going to be other folks in Christmas costumes in the parking lots. What was this?
Just pointed to me.
Oh.
Yes, Shane, that is correct. People will have to come and find out what that looks like.
So mark your calendars. We will see you guys here at Northpoint on December 24th, Christmas Eve, for a great old time.
We nailed it. Perfect. Cut it. Well, there you go. You're welcome. And if you missed the really important details because of the incredible acting, we will be having 6 Christmas Eve services at 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 p.m. And there will not be Sunday morning services that day. To find out more, just head to npaustin.com/Christmas to get all of the details. And guys, we would love to host you either in person or online. Now, during the holidays every year, Northpoint loves to partner with local nonprofits who are engaged in serving people in our community. And this year, we are partnering with Street Youth Ministry. And their focus is coming alongside, getting to know and caring for youth who are street dependent in the city of Austin. And if you guys would like to join us, we're going to show you a bunch of items on the screens that you can bring to donate to Street Youth Ministry. And we are going to have a collection point in the foyer over the next 3 Sundays leading up to Christmas Eve, but we won't collect on Christmas Eve. So there's all the things that we will be collecting, and we will provide more information on social media this week. Now, we've got a great service in store for you guys. In just a moment, Noah and Emily are going to lead us through a few songs, and then we've got an incredible baptism story of my friend Eli Reeves, who got baptized at Inside Out, our high school ministry, a few weeks ago, and we can't wait to share that story with you. And then last, but certainly not least, our associate pastor, Jordan Geist, will be wrapping up the series we are in called More. Now, at this time, I would love it if you guys would stand up, say hi to a few of the folks around you, and we will get started. Guys, thanks for coming today.
Good morning and welcome to Northpoint, Austin. Let's stand and worship today. We sing your word. Your word is a lamp unto my feet
celebrated a holiday that we focus on the abundance of blessings that we have here on this earth. And this next song serves as a reminder that, out of all that laundry list of blessings that we have here on this earth, there's one thing that outweighs them all. It's the life that we have through Jesus. So if you know this song, sing it with us. Stories of life change and of baptism. So if you would, go ahead and take a seat. Let's take a look at Eli's story.
My name is Eli Reeves. I go to Ross High School. I'm a freshman. And what was the question again? Sorry. My name is Eli Reeves. I'm a freshman at Rouse, and I have had 7 surgeries because I have a disability named arthrogryposis, which has affected my joints. Family, I have my mom, my dad, my sister, and 2 dogs, and they have been a blessing to me and to people around me. We went to 3 different churches before I was in kindergarten, and then my mom and dad were just searching for a new church, and we came across here. We came here and I didn't really know what to do, but then I finally kind of got the hang of it because Jonathan Giebelhaus walked up to me one day and I was in Upstreet, and he said, "Hey, you should start coming more often because we really like having you here." I didn't really know what to feel about God. I kind of just thought he was there. My 7th grade and 8th grade year during transit, I'd really like to thank Carson and Aaron Maginot. Carson and Aaron really taught me a new point of view of God. They kind of said, there's no joy in life until you fully, accept God. That there's happiness, but there's only a tiny bit of happiness. You win $1,000, you're gonna be happy for a little bit, but you're not gonna be joyful. I had 5 surgeries before I was the age of 3 or 4. That didn't really affect me with God at all. But then my 7th grade year, my 6th surgery, or the one on my right foot, was the one that really impacted me because God helped me get through all the pain and everything and all the suffering. And then my left foot, which was in 8th grade, my 7th surgery, he was there and I was praying to him as much as I possibly could, and he helped me again with not as much pain, just helping me get through it. Going to the surgeries and going to W3 and going through transit, they all helped me get closer to God because they all showed me new ways to connect with God. I get new views on life that other people don't have to go through. Most people won't have to go through surgeries, as many as I did. Going through all those and, connecting with God through those was really impactful for my faith. I'd like to thank Jonathan Giebelhaus and the Giebelhaus family, my mom and dad's community group, their family, the St. Clairs, my grandparents, my sister, my family, all my cousins, and everyone that has been a really big part in my life, and Carson Leedy, Aaron Maginot, Parker Mazzola, Bennett Moyer, and the Norcross family. Jesus is my savior. I want to get baptized to publicly show that I put my faith and trust in Jesus.
Eli, one word that more than most people in the world is affliction. But through all that pain and suffering, you have gained something that most people in their lifetime will strive to get but fall short of, and that is unwavering faith. You've been so faithful to God, and he's been so faithful to you. And that is something that you have exemplified, and even through the verse of Ephesians 6:10, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. And you have displayed that. You've gone boldly in the world and served, and I've gotten the opportunity to see that firsthand. And it's inspired even Parker, Bennett, and I, and we are so thankful to be here. And like you said, celebrate and show your faith that you've kept and you've held on to. So with that being said, we 3 of us have a question for you. Have you placed your full faith and trust in Jesus Christ?
Yes.
That is awesome. Well, with that being said, Bennett will baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, buried in the likeness of his death, and raised to walk in the newness of life.
That is why we do what we do. And Eli, if you're in this room with us today, I just want you to know that you're an inspiration not just to my children, but to me. And I just want to thank you for showing me and for showing all of us what it looks like to live life to the fullest. And I just want to thank all of you who are here in this room and who are tuning in online, who have chosen to give to Northpoint Church. You may not know this or not, but you are a part of Eli's story. Because of your financial commitment, we have the opportunity to create environments just like Inside Out, where students, just like Eli, can find a safe place where he can come and discover, explore, and pursue a faith of his own. And that would not be possible if it wasn't for you, and if it wasn't for you guys watching online. So I just want you all to know that we are forever grateful for you and your commitment to this church and your commitment to Eli. Let me pray for the rest of our time together. Heavenly Father, I'm just reminded by that song that we sang that you are all we need, and we find all that we need in your presence. And God, I just pray that you would help us to know that. Help us to believe that, and remember that. And Father, I'm just so grateful that we get an opportunity to see what you're doing in people's lives, just like Eli's. And God, I'm so grateful that you allow us to be a part of that. And Father, I pray that you would just continue to allow us to do everything we can to inspire people to follow your Son, Jesus Christ, because he is where our hope is. And it's in his name I pray. Amen.
All right, everybody go ahead and fist bump the person next to you to celebrate the last time we have to watch that together. If this is your first time with us, we are jealous of you. One time is enough to have to watch that. We're actually going to transform this entire environment. It's all going to be all decked out for Christmas next week. We're starting our brand new Christmas series. We're going to overcompensate as an apology for the last 4 weeks. And the only unfortunate thing is it means we're moving on from this series, which I say that's unfortunate because I really do believe that if we lean into the content of this series, it has the potential to be transformative for every single one of us. To catch you up to speed, we have been wrestling with this one concept, this one idea throughout the last month, the idea that the pursuit of more for the sake of more will ultimately leave you with less of what actually matters most to you. That we all have a thing. We all have a desire in us, a hole in us that we're trying to fulfill, whether that is through success or money or status or a title. Maybe it's more friendships or a place in life or a house or a car. Maybe it's just simply peace of mind, time in our schedule. We all think if we just had that thing, we would be fulfilled. And we've been challenging that and asking us to kind of explore what is that individually for each of us. In part 2, Jeremy Edelin talked about simplicity, that being willing to choose less on purpose actually leads more time for what is more. In a culture where we are encouraged to have more in our closets and more in our calendars, it's different than minimalism, the idea of simplicity, of choosing less. And then last week, Jen Mazzola gave what I thought was one of the most helpful messages on comparison that I've ever heard. My wife, Emily, and I were talking about bad math that we were doing and seeing all week long. And if you don't know what bad math is, you just have to go back and watch part 3. But the more we focus on the more that others have, the more likely we are to be discontent and pursue that more ourselves. And today, as we wrap and conclude the series, we are actually discussing what is, statistically speaking, the most common struggle for more. That every single person at some point in your life, at some age, and many of us for our entire lives, will battle this kind of desire for more. It's also the topic that is the most requested that we speak about. People write us emails and letters and leave voicemails like, please speak about this. They hope coming in that this is going to be the topic. And so we're answering that today. The topic we're discussing is more money. And in case my sarcasm is not always obviously sarcastic, that is sarcasm, I don't think we've ever received an email or a letter or a phone call saying, please talk about this. In fact, I realize for many of us, it's quite the opposite. It might be the one topic you come in hoping we don't talk about on a given Sunday. So I commend you just for being here and asking you to please not hit pause online, because I know that's easier to do online, and just hang with us for a couple of minutes. Because the reality is it would be difficult to do a series about the pursuit of, the consumption of, the acquiring of more
while living in the wealthiest country that has ever lived, whether we feel like that consciously or not, it's true, and then skip this topic altogether. Like, we've got to circle around it. Especially because if this country is an experiment on what it looks like to actually have more, there's a lot of warnings in the experiment. There's an organization that studies the connection between money and mental health, and they suggest that 86% of people say their current financial situation has a negative impact on mental health. So just me bringing up your finances has at least a drip of anxiety or stress for 86% of us, which is why I'm so grateful to be the one to get to navigate this today. But that's a lot of us. It's like 9 out of 10, right? 71% of us believe that more money would solve most of our problems. It doesn't mean that the other 30% still don't want more money. It just means 7 out of 10 of us think, yeah, if I looked at the 9 out of the 10 challenges facing me in life, money would solve about 9 out of 10 of those. 74% of us have a financial regret, whether we wish we would have started saving earlier or would have not gone into debt or made that purchase or hid something, lied about something, a purchase we made from somebody that we cared about. And the reason I chose those 3 statistics in particular, when there's so many you could choose, is because that kind of represents past, present, and future, right? That we have, many of us, a past issue with more, a present or a future desire to have more, and it's not necessarily going well for a majority of us. So what do we do? What is the way forward? To start the conversation, I want to bring up an idea that if this is new to you, we're talking with our message prep team this week, this might actually be the most helpful part of what we talk about. If you've never considered this before, because it's hard to move forward if you don't think about what this means for you. Our desire for more money is actually a symptom. It's just a symptom of a deeper rooted either desire or fear. None of us really just want more money for the sake of money. It's what money can actually bring us. And I think this is really important on multiple levels. For one, if you're like, I don't wear a lot of designer things, I'm not into brand name stuff, I don't drive fancy cars, like bonuses don't really inspire me, you might think this message isn't for you. Your partner, your spouse handles the finances, you're like, this isn't for me today. And I would say, no, it's not that simplistic. This isn't just breaking the world down into spenders and savers. I would say part of the reason that the second leading cause of divorce has to do with money is because of the fact that we miss each other on the core ways that we actually relate to one another. So here's just a few examples of what this may be for you, what might be underlying our desire for more. One of those areas is security. That for many of us, we see more money as a way to feel safe, secure from an unstable, chaotic world around us. It's out of control, an economic downturn, an emergency in our family. So much of this is often rooted in our childhood. My wife, Emily, she's an example of this. I asked if I could share her example because for her, she had a much more unstable childhood than I did. Both of her parents passed away young, lots of different addictions. For her and her family, the message she took away is when we don't take care of our stuff, there is dire consequences. And she would self-admit that there's no dollar amount that can make her feel good about that. It took a while to discover that, but she would now admit we could have millions in the bank and she would still be nervous that we're one bad month away from being homeless. That fear to be addressed has to be addressed in a different way than a dollar amount. And she has had such just incredible growth over 10 years, but it doesn't have to do with an amount. For some of us, it has to do with acceptance. For me, I very much fall into this category. It's the idea that our stuff shows to other people that we are enough. That the car we drive or the house we live in or the vacations we can take or the job we have, it proves to a parent, a sibling, a friend, maybe a stranger on social media that we are smart enough, that we've worked hard enough, that we've earned it or we've deserved it, that we are good enough. I have a very dear friend who's had all kinds of success in his career, but early on in his career took a loan from his dad. A couple years after taking that loan, before he had paid his back, his dad called him in a bad mood, basically just wanted to put in the knife and turn it a little bit and asked about the loan. And my friend said, hey, I'll pay it back. And his dad said, I don't think you're ever going to pay it back in a timeline that's going to matter in my life. My friend said when he heard those words from his dad, it's like time stood still. And it drove him for years to workaholism and yes, to success, but also he wasn't just trying to pay it back. He was trying to prove that he was enough. You don't necessarily have to have a physical loan like that from somebody you care about to have somebody that has treated you that way, who's maybe shamed you that way, and you're trying to prove to somebody that you are indeed enough. Maybe for you, it's simply freedom. It's just freedom in your schedule, freedom from an employer or one boss. You like flexibility. Maybe for you, it's the pleasure of things. It's the fun and excitement, not even to impress somebody else. So you just connect it with nicer meals and the ability to travel and do fun things, and that's how you see joy and happiness connected, the more of it that you have. Maybe it's a purpose thing. Maybe for you, money is even just really kind of a means to an end. It's a necessary evil to allow you to make your mark in the world or make a difference in the world. Maybe it is the thing that provides purpose for you. The next income level, the next raise, that bonus drives me 6 months at a time, and that's the purpose. Whatever it is, for every single one of us, I would suggest we all believe there is a connection between money and happiness. That the reason those are tempting to believe each of those cycles is because they usually do satisfy, at least temporarily. They satisfy the itch. And so then we believe if I just had more of whatever that category is, I would feel better about me. And many of them masquerade in really good things, right? Like on the surface, maybe one of the most powerful ones is I want to make money to provide for my children, right? Like that's good, that's admirable. And at some point we'd have to ask, how much money do I actually have to make to finally have proved that I love my children? Or how far can I actually go in playing the role of God and securing their future, making sure their future is safe? How much can we even actually do that? How much might it be that they actually desire our time more than our stuff? Or what lessons are they taking away about our pursuit of more? See, all of these beg us to ask the question, whatever the reason the desire is for you, we all at some point have to pause and ask, how much more money would it take to make you happy? If happiness feels like too trite and you're like, no, I'm happy, but yes, I'd still desire some more. Maybe the word is peace. How much more money would it take to give you peace? To move from that 86% of us who experience stress or anxiety to the 14% who have some peace? Like, what would be the actual number? I think there's a scientific answer to this for every single one of us, and I actually think it's the same for each of us. Whether you are in the 25% of Americans who have a negative net worth or you are worth billions, I think the answer for every single one of us is actually just more than you currently have. And I think maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you remember your first check as a teenager and you thought you were rich, and now you make 100x that and you're stressed about your financial situation. That can stay the kind of end goal for the rest of our lives. See, not only is this ancient wisdom, not only is this every religion, every philosophy that would suggest that money, our stuff, ultimately can't fill that desire for more inside of us, it's now like a scientifically proven fact. Like, we know that this is true. There's a whole bunch of guys that kind of put a name to an idea, a lived experience that we all know. They happen to be the first to write a book about it, and then we name the concept after them, right? Like, we've talked about a few in this series. In part 1, we talked about the Diderot effect, which was the guy who said, hey, when you acquire more, it increases your want for more. You need more things to keep up with your more things, and that kind of keeps going forever. There's the Easterlin paradox, which is very confusing for our brain, but it just means that there is no long-term correlation between increased money and happiness. And any dot along the line, you should probably bet on the person that has more stuff, but over time, there's no difference. It's very confusing. It's why it's a paradox. The hedonic adaptation, that's fun. Some people call it the hedonic treadmill. It's the idea that the external circumstances of our life don't change our level of happiness over time. That if our happiness is going to change, it's a work on the inside of us. There's the paradox of generosity. We've talked about this before. The University of Notre Dame concluded that the greatest boost to happiness when it comes to our money is actually to give it away, to be generous with it, to have less of it. That's a paradox. There's all kinds of research on the cost of more, that we will do things that cost us, things that are more valuable to us. Easy example is time with loved ones, to go get more stuff that we don't need and actually makes us less happy, but our brains get confused and we do it anyway. Or the fear of more, the fear of losing it once we acquire it, the anxiety of losing it. I mean, you could put all those together, all the major religions, all the science. I could agree yes, all that is true. It won't satisfy the more. And even as the one communicating up here today, I would say, if there's a Mega Millions ticket in my stocking this Christmas, I'm playing. right? It's weird. It is like paradoxical in our own heart. I have told Emily before that if we ever won the lottery, like I believe the logic side of my brain believes it would complicate my life and relationships. 70% of people actually become bankrupt within a few years of winning the lottery. Like that's crazy. And I want to try it. It doesn't make total sense. As a result of that, I'm not going to try to convince you today that money can't make you happy. I'm not going to try to convince you that money is not important, because I think it is. I'm not going to try to convince you to give it all away. You probably should not. I'm going to try to make the argument instead that money can absolutely contribute to your peace and satisfaction. Maybe you've heard that in church before. Maybe that's not what you expected to hear. I believe it absolutely can. I think that's experientially true. I think it's what the Bible teaches as well, and it's what I want to try to impact in the closing of this series here today. And before I jump to the parable that we're going to look at, where Jesus gives us some principles around this, I just want to acknowledge, I've mentioned it already, but I recognize that when it comes to an audience this size, especially with our audience online, when it comes to the intersection of money and faith, for many of us, it's absolutely complicated. For some of us, that's because of personal experience, personal places or institutions we've been a part of, a personal hurt we've experienced. Maybe it's a guilt or shame that we experienced growing up, like you were shamed into be giving money or, warned or threatened if you didn't. Maybe it's just your perception of organized religion from the news and so on. You're like, that's what organized religion wants. I get that. Like, I'm not obtuse to that as we talk through some of these principles here today. I think it's admirable that you are here or are still watching online. And it also does present a little bit of a complexity for us if we're going to teach what the Bible has to say. Because if you look at what's most important in the Bible, what's talked about most frequently, it gets a lot of airtime, our money and our possessions. And just look at a few of these statistics, right? 16 out of 38 of Jesus' parables have to do with our money and possessions, which makes up about 25% of his words, or 1 out of every 10 verses in the Gospels. There are 2,000 verses combined, Old and New Testament, on tithing, money, and possessions, which doubles faith and prayer combined. So if you're like, why did they talk about money in church? It's like, well, we're trying to faithfully teach through what the Bible has to say, right? And you could say we should talk about it once a month or a third of the time. If you're new to Northpoint, that's not the ratio. But we're trying to address, what does it have to say? And maybe you're here today as a follower of Jesus trying to figure out, what does God really have to say about my stuff and possessions? Or maybe you see this just more as some ancient wisdom on the topic. But I want to go straight to a parable that Jesus unpacks for us. There's so many principles in this. And it's in Luke 16. He's talking to his disciples. So this is one of those kind of smaller group of guys conversations, more insider combo with them. And it says, Jesus told this story to his disciples. There was a certain rich man who had a manager handling his affairs. One day a report came that the manager was wasting his employer's money. It was really important, not his own money that did not belong to him, but money that he was watching over, stewarding. So the employer called him in and said, "What's this I hear about you? Get your report in order, because you are going to be fired." Now, interestingly, Luke 16 immediately follows Luke 15. That's not that interesting. That's how numbers work. But it immediately follows Luke 15, which, if you've been with us for about a 6-week window or so, we did a series about a month and a half ago called Heart to Heart. It was all about Luke 15. We looked at the 3 parables of the lost sheep and the lost coin and the prodigal son. And the story of the prodigal son, the son who runs away from home, takes his father's inheritance, so money that really didn't belong to him, right? He goes out and he squanders it, is the word. He wastes it. Well, for Luke, this wouldn't have been broken up in a chapter and verse like it's organized for us so that we can remember where stuff is. Luke 15 would have just flowed right into Luke 16. The very next parable that he chooses to record uses the same word. That just like the father in the prodigal son was representative of God, we have this wealthy rich man representative of God, and we have somebody managing resources that ultimately don't belong to him, and he's wasting them. He is squandering them. The reason that is so important is it lays a foundational principle for us to move forward in the conversation, which is that what you own is not actually your own. To which all of the crypto enthusiasts say, amen, preach. I've been trying to say that for a long time. I would suggest even your Bitcoin is not your own, okay? The suggestion here is to say what you have is a gift that has been given to you to watch over temporarily for a time. And I actually don't think this is a big leap for most of us. I think the bigger leap is to go all the way to say our stuff belongs to God. If you're new to faith, new to church, you're trying to explore what is it that I believe about Jesus, sure, that's a bigger jump. I get that. It's a bigger pill to swallow, probably takes more time. But the idea that our stuff is not our own, I mean, even if you're an atheist, you would say this stuff existed before me. I got to kind of temporarily watch over it, and it will be here after me. Like nothing truly belongs to us in that kind of a sense. This is, again, all the faiths, all the religions and worldviews would suggest that same kind of perception of money. And as followers of Jesus, what we believe is that it is something that has been created by God, that has been given to us for a season, that we get to watch over, that we get to steward. That is the Bible word for it. Now, the reason that that's such a big deal, whether you can get all the way to it's God's stuff or just that it's not our own, is it really flips the conversation on its head in terms of what the follow-up questions are. It makes it so much easier for us to be open-handed when it's not ours in the first place. I'm not as obsessive about going and getting more of stuff that ultimately doesn't belong to me anyways. But a natural follow-up question, if you're managing somebody else's money, is to say, well, what's the desired outcome? Like, what are they hoping is the return on their investment? What does Jesus want us to do with the stuff that he is lending to us? And he gets very clear. He actually uses the parable here to explain it and to summarize it. Basically, this manager goes and has a series of conversations with his debtors and forgives a lot of their debt in order to prioritize the long-term relationship. It gets a little confusing because his tactics are a little bit shady. It's explained when you realize we're outside of the parable and there's characters in the parable. It gets all a little complicated. But luckily for us, Jesus tells us exactly the point of the story, and this guy prioritizing these long-term relationships. In verse 9, after he's concluded the parable, he says, here's the lesson. Here's the main point. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. This is the desired return on my investment. If principle one, our stuff is not our own and it ultimately belongs to him anyways, this makes a lot of sense. If he designed us, created us to be in relationship with us, not because he had to, but because that's what a God of love does, and if his primary command is love God and love people, then our temporary stuff, our temporary resources should be used to fuel that, should be used to benefit others, to enrich the lives of others, to care for others, to love others. It's like, this is what I want you to see you doing with your stuff. I want you to benefit the lives of those around you. That's the return that I want to see. In other words, you could say that there's this why that kind of drives all of this, because he says, when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. I want you to do this because I want you to keep the bigger picture in mind. Look at all that he says here in this 10 through 12. He says, if you are faithful in little things, you'll be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. He says, and if you are untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you're not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? In other words, he takes this command to make friends, to benefit others. Then he starts talking about an eternal home. He talks about worldly wealth, right? These things of heaven. He has this bigger picture in mind. Meaning, apparently, I don't know where definitively on the list of motivations it's supposed to fall, but one of our motivations is very clearly that we will be rewarded for our generosity. And not just like a feel-good side benefit. He is talking about a physical heaven where we will have very real physical rewards. And he brings this up about 30 times, which means that apparently he doesn't want us to miss it. I don't know exactly what those are. I don't know exactly how much it's supposed to drive us, but he's asking us not to stay just focused on the temporary, because that's all the benefit you get. If you just waste it, if you squander it like the prodigal son, like this manager and so on, well, all the benefit is whatever enjoyment you got from spending it. But Jesus is saying, I want you to keep your eyes on the bigger picture, on not the temporary things, but the eternal things, which brings us to principle number 2. That benefiting others now benefits you now and later. There's an immediate joy from that. It's the paradox of generosity. There's the connection you get by enriching relationships, and there's a promise of reward later. The last principle becomes really clear in the verse that is maybe the infamous verse, the famous or infamous verse that's next. Jeremy actually shared Matthew's version of this same verse that's worded the same way in Luke. This is the build-up to what Jesus says when he says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money, which would have been as confusing and shocking to the first century audience as us. Like, what would we say is the opposite of God? It's not what they would have been expecting. We would have thought the opposite of God is sin or the devil, Oklahoma. It's just not like stuff, like, right? Not our money. Wouldn't pin the two against one another. But I think the key word is devoted. We probably would raise our hands and say, I love my money. But devoted is the word he uses. If you've ever made a financial decision you regret, if you've ever just given in into a temptation or a desire or why'd I do that in the moment, that's the devotion. It's putting action to the desire, which means principle number 3, if you don't manage your money, it will manage you. If we're not on top of it, it'll be on top of us. If we don't direct it, it directs us. If we don't leverage our money, we will end up worshiping it. And part of what unlocks the meaning of 13 is to keep reading to 14, why he talks about these two in particular being competing against one another. Because in 14, look at the insight that Luke gives us. Luke says the Pharisees, who dearly loved their money, heard all this and scoffed at him. And if we scoff at this, our kind of inner lawyers going, arms folded at this, maybe we should at least pause because the Pharisees, they're not really the good guys in the story, right? They love their money. And then he said to them, you like to appear righteous in public, but God knows your hearts. What this world honors is detestable in the sight of God. Meaning, God doesn't want your stuff. He wants your heart. He knows you and he wants you, relationship with you. The reason Jesus says what he says in 13 is he knows this is the greatest adversary for our heart, the greatest competition for our heart. It is the tool that we want to leverage to say, I can satisfy that desire for more. What we've been talking about throughout the whole series. I can do it on my own smarts, my own effort, my own hard work. God, I don't need you. And he knows that temptation exists, and that's why he pits the two against one another. This is also the reason, because of what's on the line, that based on the way we use it, it can open up our hearts to connection with God. Also the reason that I would say absolutely there is a correlation between money and happiness. But I would suggest that it's this. The correlation between money and happiness is not more. We've proven it. It's scientifically proven. All the wisdom of the world says it. It's management. That money makes a fickle God. That it's way too inconsistent, way too changing, lets you down too often to ever place our trust in it. But when we stay on top of it, say it's not my own anyway, so I'm going to leverage it for the benefit of others, as we do that, that has a direct correlation to our peace, to our joy, to our satisfaction. I think you know this if you even just pause and think about the things that cause you stress when it comes to our stuff. What causes you stress is not knowing where it's going. I really don't know what's in the account. I don't really budget. Are we okay or not okay? You may actually be. You don't know it because we don't monitor it. That causes us stress. What causes us stress is when we live on more than we make consistently. And we make that a habit over time. That causes us stress. What causes us anxiety is when we hoard it, when we get afraid of losing it, that it's all for my consumption. I earned it. It belongs to me. And that posture over time closes us off to others, closes us off ultimately to dependence on, to connection with God. Those things cause stress and anxiety. But when we say, no, I'm going to flip it, I'm on top of it, I'm going to direct it, I'm going to leverage it, it's going to increase connection with others and connection with God. It plays into our peace, our joy, and our contentment. And so what I want to do is talk about what is the normal roadmap, how we kind of relate to this in our culture, and maybe what is an alternative. I heard Andy Stanley once talk about this. He was actually teaching on the same passage, Luke 16, and he's a pastor in Atlanta. And he said there are 3 words that can describe our whole approach to money in the U.S. Like our whole normal, what is normal in our culture, kind of the gravitational pull. You could summarize it in 3 words. One of those, the normal pursuit of more, if you will. Like this is what most of us do. The normal pursuit of more starts with discontentment. It means I know what more there is to have, I know what more you have, and it creates a desire for more in me. And there's one simple thing, one concept that fuels discontentment, and that is awareness. That awareness breeds discontentment, right? Have you ever 1 second not known something existed and 30 seconds later you needed it? That's awareness breeding discontentment. Maybe you've experienced that sometime in the last 72 hours because we're in the height of that in our culture right now in this moment. On Friday, knowing that I was teaching about this on Sunday, which means just normally our communicators are up here. We're talking about this like with you, not at you, right? Friday, I'm watching the UT game. It's the 3rd quarter. They're crushing Texas Tech because, of course, they are. And I'm getting bored. It's before Arch Manning comes out. And so I get my phone out, realizing I haven't done any Black Friday shopping on Friday. And with zero intentionality, like there was nothing I needed, nothing I was like, oh, I wanted to get this today. We have a baby on the way. Nothing I was like, oh, maybe we should get this for him. No, it's like I just first go to Apple. I wonder what Apple's doing today. Oh, $200 gift card if you buy something. Do I need another thing? Do I need some headphones? And then I'm like, no, can't afford anything. Okay, so Best Buy. I'm going to go to Best Buy. And then I'm starting to see, man, TV prices have really come down over the last couple of years. And, they've got QLEDs and OLEDs, and they've got ABC LEDs and XYZ LEDs. And I'm sitting there, and then I'm looking up at our TV, and I'm like, babe, can you even tell that a football game is on? It's like so tiny, we need, and I'm just like feeling it rise. Then thankfully, Arch Manning comes out and has the most incredible 4-yard run anybody's ever seen. And so I'm like locked back in, but I didn't feel like more peace in that moment, more joy. I wasn't like more full of gratitude for all that we have. I'm just like, this thing's a piece of junk up there. It's basically black and white now. And so I'm like, and that's what fuels that, right? And it's all around us in our culture. It's every time you get out your phone. I'm thoroughly convinced now, I'm already sold on the conspiracy theory that our phones are listening to our voices. I now believe it knows what I dream about. I'm just it's crazy. It's all around us. But the more that discontentment rises, what it gives birth to is greed. Greed is tough on multiple levels. Greed defined is the assumption that it's all for my consumption. I have worked hard. I put in the time and effort. I got the degrees. I have the life experience. No consideration for how maybe grateful we should be for where we were born or the gifts that God has given us or the resources he's given us or the people he's put in our lives. We're just it's for me. It's for my benefit. And what's tough is it's really hard to see in the mirror. It's like pride. It's one of those things. It's really difficult to admit, yes, I'm a greedy person. It exists in all of our hearts. But it's hard to see in the mirror. And it's really difficult because it's an appetite, right? It's something that is never ending. It's something that we can always keep feeding and fueling, especially in the part of the world where we live. We don't have to say no when the money runs out. We can just keep going. And that gives way to the third kind of summary of what it looks like in our culture, which is debt, right? Debt is a little confusing when it comes to the Bible because sometimes it's demonized to say it's forbidden, you can't, and so on. What the Bible actually says is simply that we have to pay our debts. Well, you see this in Proverbs 22 that says the borrower is slave to the lender. So when you want something, when you desire something, right, you could kind of say that's between you and God. My desire for the TV, that's me having a conversation with him. Do I need it? Do I not? Can I cultivate gratitude? That's between you and him before you've taken action. When you go and buy the thing you can't afford, when you go and get into debt, now that's between you and the lender. And the discouraging thing is it seems like God takes the side of the lender. He tells us, followers of Christ, that we have to be faithful with our commitments, that we have to pay it back. And that can feel like we're trapped. That can cause stress and anxiety. In other words, you could say that the summary the Bible's teaching on it is this really simple formula. It's really practical. It can have a huge impact on your life. It's the idea that I want is better than I owe. That feeling of I could say yes, but I'm not going to. I could take out the loan, but I'm not going to. Maybe you could even pay for it in full, but I'm going to say no. And it's better because you know that about a week later or a month later, the actual equation is I want is better than I owe and still want. because it's an appetite. It doesn't go away. And now we find ourselves in a more stressful situation, but the discontentment hasn't gone. It was maybe the itch was scratched for a season, but now it's back and the discontentment has risen more. And when you think about that list, I mean, discontentment, greed, debt, which one of those, the pursuit of more of those, ultimately bring you peace or joy, happiness, satisfaction? Like, which one of that's so normal in our culture, which one of that brings you that? It's none of them. So here's an alternative approach. Here's flipping the list on its head. I don't think Andy's probably the first one who came up with this, but he's the first one I heard it from. It's so simple. If you've been a part of our Northpoint for a while, then you've heard these 3 steps before because they're so practical and clarifying. But to flip that list on its head is maybe the abnormal pursuit of management. If there's the normal pursuit of more, the abnormal pursuit of management would be to first give. To say this is a declaration right to that feeling of discontentment. If discontentment is focusing on what I do not have, giving is an awareness, a gratitude of what I do have. And it's saying right off the bat, my security isn't in this. My trust isn't in this. My satisfaction, my meaning and purpose isn't in this. I'm managing, leveraging somebody else's stuff anyways. And so that decision to give right off the top, it's a declaration and it's a heart move, is what it really is. We see in Proverbs, for example, this idea of honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. We didn't get into a bad financial situation, a stressful situation, because of logical moves that all made sense. We got into it for heart reasons. This is addressing the heart first. It's very confusing, but even a Dave Ramsey who is like way over the top, like aggressive on get out of debt, at all costs, he doesn't tell you to stop giving at any point in the journey. Because what the research shows is that people get out of debt faster and stay out of debt when they're generous, when they continue to give along the way. On a spreadsheet, that's weird. But what happens is you are saying, I'm on top of my money. I'm in control of it. And what you cumulatively do with the other 90% is so much wiser as a result, right? It's taking that first step to address the heart first. When you give first, and then you save second, when you pick a percentage to save, and you already know I've been generous, and there's all kinds of wisdom throughout the scriptures, especially in Proverbs, about the long term, that's part of being a good steward. When you save second, there's a peace of mind that goes along with that. I think peace of heart ultimately comes from somewhere else, is ultimately directly connected to Jesus, but peace of mind results when we save second. And then when you live on the rest. When we kind of do this, what seems like a pretty radical concept in today's day and age, but to actually just not live on more than we make. And when you live on the rest, for some of us, that is going to be an absolute adjustment. Like that would be painful to start operating that way. But when you do that, you experience a freedom as a result. Now think about each of those 3. Do any of those 3 contribute to our joy or our happiness or our satisfaction? Like think about what each of those 3 bring. It's the paradox of generosity. It's the Notre Dame study that the greatest thing we can do for our own joy and satisfaction with our money is to be generous, is to bless others, is to make friends with it. Then when we choose to save, there's a peace of mind. And when we live on the rest, there's a freedom that goes along with that. I recognize for some of us, that's a really practical list. It's an outline. Some of you have been running that for a while. It's a tried and true, just tested principle. For others of us, we're like, I don't even know where to start with that. Like 1, I'm still pretty skeptical. I have pushbacks and questions. But 2, like I'm so overwhelmed perhaps. Or I've just never been the money manager. Or I don't know how to talk to my partner about this. Or, numbers scare me. I mean, there's just so many reasons why it might be overwhelming to even start. Maybe the starting point for you is to actually start this in the context of community. 6 weeks from now, we're launching our next Money Matters group. Some of the most incredible stories of life change that we've had at Northpoint have come out of these groups. You can actually watch this story at our website, npaustin.com/moneymatters. The story is up there, but you can also register for our next group today. Registration is already open for it. If you're like, I'm tired of the stress, tired of the anxiety, I'm looking for either the help or support or accountability or clarity on what the next step is, maybe that's a huge step for you in this area in the pursuit of how do we manage the desire for more in this area. If you're like, I want to do the give, save, live, I'm open to trying it. That first step could be you going to npaustin.com/give. And this is where we talk about the 4 different ways that you can give here. Our fuel campaign is also up there at the top. We introduced that a couple of weeks ago where we just had a huge celebration about all of the ways that Fuel 2023 has been instrumental in stories of life change this year and what we're dreaming about for next year, this kind of above and beyond giving. But for my wife, Emily, and I, like, this is where we have to go and we have to automate it. Like, that's just me being real. If I don't automate it, I just know that the temptation is way too big for me to kind of deprioritize it, maybe forget a month, something like that. I'm like, I have to automate the importance. This is the top. We pick a percentage. That gets complicated because she has variable income. Like, we have to think through all those details. It gets a little complicated. But I just would not ask you guys to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself, and that's what we do. And then we think about above and beyond and praying, like, can we be a part of Fuel above and beyond that? And what does all of that look like? And here's what I want to make really clear. If the hang up for you is that you're in that part of the group where faith and money is complicated, if the hang up for you being generous specifically is with the church, is with organized religion, and so on, I would say give it somewhere else. And I'm not trying to play any games with that. Like, let me be 100% clear. I absolutely want you to give it here. Of course I do. I think it would be kind of odd if I didn't. It'd be like, yeah, I don't really know where it's going anyways. And I mean, like, sure, just flip a coin. Like, of course I do. I get to be a part of the team that's on the front lines of telling people yes when the funds are there and you've been generous and we get to help. And on the team that has to say no when they're not there, I get to see a front row seat every single week. So the way that you're giving advances our mission and vision. I dream about what it would look like, what we could do here at Northpoint and what we could do in our part of Austin if everybody who is engaged at Northpoint gave a percentage regularly. Like, I love it. It excites me. Yes, of course I do. And if that's the reason you wouldn't give is a hang up with church, I would beg you, try it somewhere else. Like, please give to a nonprofit or a cause or whatever it may be. There's way too much to miss out on here. There's way too much hanging in the balance. There's way too much about our heart getting locked up versus being open to a connection with our Heavenly Father who desires you, not your stuff. He desires a relationship with you. So maybe that's the step for you instead. The summary of all of this, the point of all of this is that yes, absolutely, there is a correlation between money and happiness, but it's not more. It's management. It's cultivating gratitude to say, God, all that you've given me, all the skills and gifts and talents I have to earn it, like, it all ties back to you. God, I want to steward it well. Apparently, the return you want to see is loving other people well, caring for them well. And the more we say, it's not going to master me, I'm going to master it, it's not going to have a plan for me, I'm going to have a plan for it, it addresses that desire for more in our hearts. And even as you zoom back on this entire series, because this is a wrap on this whole series, this desire of more, what we've been wrestling with, the whole concept that the pursuit of more for the sake of more will ultimately leave you with less. My hope is if you've been with us, you've identified it. If you haven't been, maybe you go back and watch and identify what that thing is. But we suggested in part 1, and we've been trying to unpack it every week since, that the answer is in one place, specifically one person alone, that the pursuit of Jesus, for the sake of Jesus, not what he can necessarily add or change or benefit in your life, just relationship with him. The pursuit of Jesus for the sake of Jesus will ultimately leave you with more of what you ultimately desire. And today's conversation is just a conversation about a tool. It's just talking about the tool that can either get in the way of and say, God, I've got it. I can fill that pursuit of more. I can satisfy my own heart. I worked hard enough, I'm smart enough, or can be a tool to leverage connection with him, to open our minds and hearts to relationship with him in perhaps a fresh way. And that's our heart, our desire for each of us. So I would love if you would pray with me that we would do exactly that as we head into this Christmas season. Father, thank you for being with us in every single part of this series as we unpack some of these really big concepts. God, I ask that you just take the confusing words that we say on stage and you make them not confusing. You simplify them in our hearts and minds, God. We don't want to hear from anybody up here. We want to hear from you. We want to have peace from you on these topics. God, some of us have been chasing things, chasing something, chasing an idea for a long, long time. And God, it's a hole, a desire that only you can ultimately satisfy. So we ask that you show us to that you make it real to us, how it is that we can ultimately cultivate an openness, a connection to you, because that's what this is all about as we celebrate you and the birth of your son this Christmas season. Father, we love you. We need you, and it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much for being here. We can't wait to see you for our Christmas series next week.